These days, people are getting divorced left and right. It's really not an issue in most parts of the world. You can get divorced for any reason, really. Back in the day, as in way back in the day, like a couple of centuries ago, it wasn't such an easy task. During the 16th and 17th century in France, male impotence was considered a crime and thus legal grounds for a divorce. Basically, if you couldn't get it up, your wife could legally end the marriage. No fucking pressure, or should I say no fucking pressure. And as you can imagine, wives saw this as a way to escape their marriage for any reason really, as all they had to do was accuse their husband of incompetence. Of course, it wasn't that simple though. You see, as with any crime, you need evidence to prove that what you say is in fact true. So when a husband was charged with the crime of erectile dysfunction, he was to demonstrate his powers of erection before an expert team of priests, surgeons, and midwives. These experts would carefully examine his equipment to reach an opinion on its elastic tension, natural motion, and ability to ejaculate. Should he, against all odds, fail this test, he had but one option left: to demand trial by Congress, wherein he would be given 2 hours to have sex with his accuser, his wife, as the ultimate proof that he could indeed perform in the bedroom. Should he fail this test as well, it would not only result in the dissolution of the marriage, he would also be ridiculed by the public for many years to come. When you're having sex, is it possible to get stuck? Unable to pull out, so to speak? And don't claim you haven't thought about this, we have all thought about this, and believe it or not, it's not a myth, it is actually possible. But what are words compared to an illustration? So, let me illustrate. I actually went to the store and bought a pack of donuts and sausages just for this video. This phenomenon even has a name, which is penis captivus. While science isn't entirely sure why this is happening, what is happening is that the muscles of the vagina clamp down on the penis, which makes it impossible to withdraw. Luckily, this is an extremely rare thing, and in case it should ever happen to you, it usually only lasts for a couple of minutes. Usually. Out of context, things such as a person's saliva, sweat, semen, and body odor is often seen as very disgusting. So why aren't we more disgusted by sex and other sexual interactions? A study was conducted to find out why, and what they found was that sexual arousal actually lowers your level of disgust, which in turn allows us to regard sex as a very pleasant experience instead of an unpleasant, disgusting one. Disgust-induced avoidance is the scientific term for not wanting to do something disgusting, and normally you would not want to drink from this glass of juice with a dead insect in it. If you're sexually aroused, however, it's a lot more likely that you won't care and take a sip anyway. Not only do women have longer, multiple, and more intense orgasms, they have other ways of achieving it than just regular sex. For example, as much as 15% of women can achieve orgasm by working out. The more scientific term for it would be exercise-induced orgasms, but it's more commonly referred to as coregasm, as it happens when performing certain ab exercises. It's not entirely clear how this happens, but it is, unfortunately for all men, a women exclusive. Anywhere from 1 to 5% of women can also climax by stimulation of their nipples alone, a so-called nipple-gasm. Of course, women doesn't get all the fun, as guys have a much higher chance of actually having an orgasm in the first place. In many studies, men climax around 80% of the time during regular intercourse, while women orgasm as seldom as 25% of the time. If you want to give both parties the maximum probability of success, oral sex is the way to go. Size does, in fact, matter, not necessarily in the way you think though, as research have found that fat men last significantly longer in bed compared to more slender and fit men. Heavier men are able to make love for an average of 7.3 minutes, while men with a more healthy BMI only last for an average of 1.8 minutes. The reason for this is female hormones. Men with excess fat has higher levels of the female sex hormone called estradiol. This substance disrupts their body's natural male chemicals and slow down their progression towards orgasm. The average length of an erect human penis is roughly between 13 and 15 centimeters, and a penis with a length of less than 7 centimeters is medically referred to as a micropenis. Now, the question is of course, is it big enough? Studies show that around half of all men think their dick is too small, while 7 out of 8 women think their man's length is just fine. So for the most part, size isn't as significant as many men seem to think it is. On the other hand, the average depth of the human vagina is anywhere between 6 and 13 centimeters. So all this makes you wonder why we associate a large penis with manlyhood, because for the most part of history it's actually been the other way around. From ancient Greece to ancient Rome, all the way up to the Renaissance, a small penis was better. In fact, in many plays and stories, male characters were punished by receiving a much larger penis. Michelangelo's David is another example. It wasn't until the late 1800s and early 1900s when pornographic photography and motion pictures paved the way for the modern porn industry. And a large focus of porn is namely the penis. It wasn't long until bigger meant better, and comically large penises, much like gigantic breasts, took center stage. Around 25% of all men say that they have faked an orgasm. You might be wondering how that's possible, but men can actually orgasm without ejaculating, which means that faking it isn't that much of a problem. On the other hand, over 70% of women claim to have faked it. For the longest time, it was believed that humans were the only creatures that had sex for pleasure. We now know that this isn't the case, as quite a few animals have been observed doing just that. Some examples are dolphins, hyenas, seahorses, and bonobo apes. And it's not just in the form of regular sex, no. Bonobo apes in particular are extremely diverse in their sexual behavior. Things such as masturbation, homosexuality, bisexuality, oral sex, and necrophilia are just a few things that bonobos do all the time. And I really mean all the time. They use sexual acts to resolve conflicts, to greet each other, and as bargaining for trading food. As a result, bonobo apes are an extremely peaceful species. Being a virgin over a certain age is very stigmatized in many parts of the world. In the United States and Europe, for example, most people have sex for the first time between the ages of 16 and 18, but almost 30% of people between the ages of 15 and 24 are still virgins. Not only that, but most women who lose their virginity between the ages of 16 and 18 wish that they had waited a little longer. And while it's difficult to say, anywhere from 1 to 4% of all people in the US die without ever having sex. A few famous people are known, or at least highly suspected, to have died as virgins as well. For example, Isaac Newton, Nikolai Tesla, Andy Warhol, Queen Elizabeth I, J. Edgar Hoover, and Joseph Cornell, among others. During the 13th century, Genghis Khan founded and ruled the Mongol Empire, the largest land empire in all of history. In his quest for dominance, around 40 million people or so were killed in his name. At the time, that was 10% of the entire world's population. Now, like most guys, Genghis Khan liked sex. Very much so, in fact, because Genghis Khan did not fuck around when it came to fucking around. He had so much sex with so many women that today, around 16 million men are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. That's 1 in every 200 men alive today, and a staggering 10% of all men who reside within the borders of the now long-gone Mongol Empire are his descendants. It's not known how many lovers he had, but estimates range from a couple of hundreds to several thousands. I wonder if he felt like he had to give something back to the world after taking so many from it. Nah, I probably just like to fuck.